place in Jerusalem where people put their heads together in order to develop innovative policy strategies, programs, and projects to meet environmental challenges in Israel and around the globe. It is the Mילקן Innovation Center, and one of its key efforts in this vein is the International Fellowship, which allows alumni to apply sophisticated Israeli technologies in their home countries.
Thank you for this invitation to join you today. Wanted to tell you a little bit about how we're looking at both financial and technology accelerators as being the key of importance to working together to reach the Sustainable Development Goals. By the end of 2019, we were already seriously off track meeting both the SDG goals and the climate change goals that have been set out by international agreements. COVID-19 crisis really set us back considerably. 71 million people have been pushed back into extreme poverty during 2020. It's the first rise since 1998, and half of the global workforce has experienced a 60% decline in income. Declines in child labor have been reversed for the first time in 20 years. The death rates of children under 5 and maternal deaths have spiked, and we're going in the wrong direction on global warming, which has been increasing rather than reversed. So how can we together start to address these global challenges to security in climate, food, energy, water, health, in order to create a platform for shared prosperity? The SDGs provide us with a framework for doing that, both in terms of the goals and the targets. We have to figure out how the solution sets in order to meet them. So how do we indeed move and meet this moment in history to get back on the right track? Now, at our institute and at the labs that we do, we focus not on the what questions. On global poverty, we obviously will agree is a problem. There's a great consensus about issues about income inequality constraining global growth. We know there are barriers to technology adoption and adaptation to the situations in developing countries. So we really focus on how to finance, how to organize, build the financial models and the business models in order to carve channels of capital that would flow into this area. How do we work on this? Well, we do these labs that I was just discussing. We're a financial innovation think tank working around technologies of all sorts that translate into the best practices for scalable and market-oriented solutions that can be pulled into the market through the democratization of capital by providing investable projects that can drive that. We train people to do this and into co-innovation teams with people in different countries. At this overlap and this Venn diagram between finance and technologies, how those can be mutually reinforcing to accelerate growth and sustainable development, and the training experience to do so. And these are some of our partners that you see here. Here in Israel, what's driven this country's growth to developed country economy status has been technology. It's responsible for over 60% of growth over the last 3 decades, over 40% of our foreign exchange reserves. And we've looked at the startup nation ecosystem and the technologies there, and we've identified 600, 800 companies that are specifically targeted on applications in water, food, energy, and health, but driven by life sciences, communication, ICT technologies, and the like that provide those solutions. We have to bring those together in terms of policy, business models, and technology, and finance and investment, and then policy and program changes as well to form co-innovation teams that can be deployed on specific objectives. Now, these co-innovation teams that we try to form have to go through a process to identify what specific achievables, deliverables would be, and types of projects to go into becoming investable projects that are worthy of and sustainable on a financial as well as on an environmental and social criteria. We do this by training teams of people in conjunctions with our labs at the Hebrew University School of Business and at the Mילקן Innovation Center through our Blum labs for developing economies in these various areas and tied to specific projects. Now, I want to just take you briefly in the time I have today through a few case studies of how this has worked. And here you see the pictures of some of our fellows who've come here for 10 months to a year working on specific projects, on assignments with startups or with our R&D labs, both at the Agricultural Research Center as well as corporate R&D labs from major technology corporations. And I'm just going to walk you through these. There's 3 examples. One in cassava to extend its product life. The second on dealing with off-grid and mini-grid solar for areas where there's inconsistent electricity provision, working with Power Africa and others focused in this area. And the third, looking at artificial intelligence applications for digital payments and fintech that can optimize the yield for small farmers. So let's take cassava for a moment. Timoteo Mudale came to us from Nigeria, from the University of Ibadan, and was put on a project that we were able to identify to deal with SDGs in the focus of cassava. We know cassava is a main staple for a large part of the sub-Saharan African population. There's over 30 million smallholder farmers growing cassava in Nigeria. It's a weather-resistant crop with very high nutritional value. The needs and challenges is that the life expectancy of the cassava, the shelf life of a cassava plant is about 36 hours, 2 to 3 days, before it starts to rot. So there's enormous post-harvest loss of cassava after the harvest, and there's very limited methods for extending its product life. So at the harvest, the volume of the cassava floods the market, lowers the price, and limits the income for farmers. So if we could combine some technologies, as we found them in the Agricultural Research Institute, on field drying of the crop, as well as storage, we could extend the life of that and increase the income and yields for farmers, for small